Hello everyone, my name is Veronika Kolesnikova. I am three times Microsoft MVP in AI, and also I am a senior software engineer here in Boston, Massachusetts. Today I am really excited to join Festive Tech Calendar and walk you through a really fun workshop using Microsoft Bot Framework Composer. So let's go.
So before we move forward with actual workshop, I would like to cover some basic information about virtual assistant, bots, and bot composer specifically. Here you can see my Twitter handle in case you have any questions later. Feel free to follow me there. But now let's get started. So, what is a bot? There's so many different definitions of bots. There are bots everywhere. They can be integrated with all kinds of applications, but in general, bot is a piece of software that can respond to a request, perform some action, or provide some answers. Basically, bot can understand what your customer wants from it and then provide some kind of response. There are also virtual assistants. I know it might be a little confusing how virtual assistants are related to bots. I personally think that bots are the same as virtual assistants. Virtual assistant is just a different channel for the bot. You're still creating your bot, but then you are also adding audio integration, speech recognition, and then your simple bot can become a virtual assistant skill. Siri and Cortana bots, as well as Microsoft's Clippy and AOL Instant Messengers Smarter Child. I've never worked or seen Smarter Child, but if you did, definitely let me know. I am interested in that type of bots as well. And here I also wanted to mention Tay, and it's a good example of machine learning. It was a really great experience. Microsoft created that bot called Tay and just released it on Twitter to learn from tweets in lifetime. To learn from tweets and then post based on those learnings. Within just a couple of hours, that bot became really rude, racist, and overall unbearable. So Microsoft had to take that bot away and shut it down right away. It was a good learning experience both for Microsoft and us bot developers. You shouldn't allow your bot just randomly use Twitter and learn from whatever it can find online. That's not a good option there. You need to make sure that your data is clean, your machine learning model is accurate, and you know the data set, and is also implementing responsible AI principles. You can create a bot in so many different ways. All those big companies like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, they all have lots of different tools for you to actually start building your bot. Today, I want to show you just a couple of offerings from Microsoft that can be helpful for you if you decide to build a bot. So the first one is Bot Framework SDK. That's in the core of every bot. If you want to create your bot from scratch, you are basically opening just your Visual Studio and adding a NuGet package with them SDK, and then just start building it from scratch. Also, behind the scene of a lot of Microsoft technologies for bot developers is a bot framework SDK. Next offering here is Azure Bot, which used to be Azure Web App Bot. Recently, the Web App Bot got deprecated, and now when you are building your new bots, you need to create Azure Bot resource on Azure. All the benefits of Azure can be used with that option. There are two options how you can use Azure Bot. You can go to Azure portal, create Azure Bot resource, and then open it right in the Bot Composer. Or you can start from Bot Composer locally and then deploy it to Azure, and you'll have that Azure bot resource. That Azure bot resource can be connected to different channels like Alexa and Telegram. You see some of the channels on the left here. Since I mentioned channels, I also want to mention Azure Bot Channels Registration resource. So if you just need that little piece of functionality and you don't want to go and create Azure Bot, but you just want to connect your bot to different channels, then you can create Azure Bot Channels Registration separately and then connect your bot to different channels. But it's definitely more convenient to create Azure Boy resource, which can be connected automatically. You have more control and it's just overall more convenient to use. Next, I want to mention Azure Health Bot. So Azure Health Bot is created with HIPAA in mind. It is HIPAA compliant. It is specifically developed for health-related solutions. But it is not just completely finished product that you can just grab and deploy on production and let your customers use. It is just a good framework for all healthcare related solutions. For example, if you're building a bot for maybe scheduling an appointment or finding the right doctor, then Azure Health Bot can be the really good baseline where you can build on top of it, connect to other cognitive services, machine learning models, and also customize it for your specific client. Next, I want to mention Power Virtual Agent, and that is a low code, no code option. If you have a diverse team containing of developers and non-developers, and you just want to build that big system and everyone wants to contribute, then people who are not developers or just don't want to write code, they can use Power Virtual Agent to create a bot or actually a piece of bigger bot that can integrate different pieces created with different technologies. And also, Power Virtual Agent can be exported and then modified inside Microsoft Bot Framework Composer. And finally, I mentioned both Composer so many times already, and finally we got to it. It is basically an IDE for bots. You are just installing it on your machine, and then you have access to pretty much everything. You have really awesome UI there. Where you see the flow of your dialogues. It's really easy to follow the dialogues, um, design the dialogues, and see how they are integrated with each other. Also, you have option to deploy it to Azure and connect to different channels, test right inside your IDE, and just it's just amazing. So when we move to actual workshop, you'll see how awesome Bot Composer is. And here I grabbed that schema from Microsoft documentation so you can see how it's all integrated and how you can connect different pieces and create a really efficient bot. So you can see in the middle, in the core of every bot, you have bot framework. The bot framework SDK that I just mentioned recently. You can connect it to different cognitive services like speech, Q&A maker, the language understanding intelligence service, vision, and other models and machine learning tools that are available there. Then on the left, using Azure bot service, you can connect it to different channels, to Teams, Cortana, Alexa, email, whatever you want to use your bot. It is pretty much all possible through those channels. There are lots of channels available, so definitely check it out when you have a chance. You can use different inputs. It can understand written text, it can understand speech, um, present adaptive cards. So you need to be mindful uh, what your customers want, how they prefer to interact with their bots, or what tools they're using. Maybe they're going to use it on their mobile devices or maybe standalone virtual assistant devices like Echo Dot from Amazon or something like that. So since I mentioned devices, I want to go to the devices part of this schema. And there are so many different devices. You need to remember that different input can be used with different devices. So definitely make sure that you keep that in mind when you are building your bot. It is possible to change it and update and add more later, but it is really good to understand it when you build it initially. So it can be extendable, it can be easily updatable. So make sure that you remember that. And on the right, you can see that we can connect our bot to different outside knowledge bases like general knowledge, data sources, PDFs, or any other documentation. Also, you can connect your bot to skills. I can send email. It can connect to other bots, calendars, perform different tasks. Especially, I want to highlight the connection to other bots. That is really important. You can create the whole network of bots that can be connected and pass information back and forth. So it can be really useful for your customers. Then you can connect those skills to outside APIs, Office Graph, Active Directory. There are so many different opportunities. Also, you can connect your bot to third-party assistants. It can be the whole call center, and you can pass the data back and forth between a call center with real people and your bot solution. Now I want to talk a little more about Bot Composer here. Using Bot Composer, you can create a new bot using a template. There are so many different templates available inside Bot Composer. You can create just empty bot, you can create a virtual assistant, you can connect to Lewis and Q&A maker right away, or you can connect to them later, or There are so many different opportunities, so many different templates. So it's really good to see what is available there out of the box so it can save you some time building your bot. Next, you can add um, language understanding capabilities to your bot using Lewis and Q&A Maker. Some of them are included into some templates. If you just decide to build an empty bot and then add Lewis and Q&A Maker, that's possible too. So that's really convenient. You can author text and, if needed, speech variation responses for your bot using language generation templates. You can also author bots in multiple languages. So Bot Composer actually supports different languages. I don't know how many languages, but if you go through that documentation, I'm sure you'll find the number of languages that you can use, and it is really impressive. So your bot can interact in different languages and be used in different parts of the world. Next, you can test directly inside Composer using embedded web chat, or you can actually um, deploy it and test it on Azure. That is also an option. Um, since I mentioned that, we can go to the next point here. You can publish bot to Azure App Service and Azure Functions. So your bot can be connected not only cognitive services, not only machine learning models, but also it can be connected to Azure Functions. And Azure Functions can do whatever you want. As you probably know, they can send emails, they can start different processes. So you can extend your bot as much as you want. And next, you can extend Power Virtual Agents with Composer. It's in preview right now. So definitely check it out. As I mentioned before, you just need to create your bot using Virtual Agent. It's a low code, no code option. And then if you want to extend it and actually use code, maybe adjust something, maybe change some parts using Composer, you can do that. And then next here is integration. You can integrate external services such as Q&A Maker or different knowledge bases with your bot. You can connect to different libraries, outside libraries. So it's really cool. It's a really useful tool. Now I want us to move to the workshop where we'll be creating a weather bot using the bot framework composer. Here I open bot framework composer. You can download it online. It is open source and absolutely free. I have the latest version. Currently, it is version 2.1.1, but definitely make sure that you are using the latest version to access all the benefits of the composer. So, a quick overview: when you open your composer here, you have an option to open the bots that you created before, create a new one, or access resources like documentation, GitHub, get the bot framework emulator for testing, and then also ask questions using Stack Overflow. So when you are installing your bot composer, you are not going to be left alone, just you and that new tool that you just installed. Also, there are some tutorials, videos, links to some previous conferences and presentations related to the composer. and some news. So it's really convenient when you open it up. It is right in front of you, everything that you might need, the way you can start, the way you can learn more about it, maybe submit a question or an issue, maybe even submit a pull request on GitHub. Next, here you have package manager access. You have option to publish, and then forms. Currently, it's in preview. Next is knowledge base. You can connect to different knowledge bases right from your composer, and then bot responses, user input, configure, and then create. They are all currently grayed out because I don't have anything open right now. But for the purposes of this workshop, we'll start creating a bot from scratch. So I am clicking on that create new, and here you can see all the templates that are available out of the box. If you are, like me, a C# developer, you have all those templates available for you. If you are a Node developer, you have less options here because Node is still in preview. But don't be discouraged by that. You can also use Node or start from scratch and then mix and match. Building your bot inside your VS Code or whatever your ID you prefer, and then connect it with the composer. It is really convenient. So I'm gonna choose C# here, and for this workshop, I will go with the core bot with language. And if you are not sure what options are available, you can always click on an option and then read all about it. Here, good links, good information. It is really convenient. I am choosing CoreBot with language because it is including LUIS or Language Understanding Intelligence Service right out of the box. So it will your bot will understand some basic commands, and we don't need to build it completely from scratch. But again, it depends on what kind of application you are building. So I'm gonna choose next here. I have an option to update the name. I am gonna call it Festive Tech Bot. You can call your bot whatever you prefer, totally up to you. You can choose your allocation here, and then choose a runtime type. There are two options. I have Azure Web App and Azure Functions. I'm going to leave it by default Azure Web App, and then I am creating a bot by clicking that create button. It might take a little to actually set it up because it needs to set up the code. You will be able to access the code through your Visual Studio. Also, set up some basic dialogues that are common with that template. Um, at the same time, it will set up that Lewis right in that brand new bot that we are creating, but you'll need to connect to Lewis resources in Azure. So once it's done building, we'll be able to connect to Lewis. Now our bot got created, and as I mentioned before, now we need to connect it to actual Lewis resource on Azure. And it is really convenient. It shows what is left in the setup. So we just need to click on that, And then there are three options. We can use existing resources if you created them ahead of time or you want to reuse resources that maybe are not in use right now. You can create and configure new Azure resources or generate instructions for Azure Administrator. Um, that third option is convenient if you don't have access to Azure yourself, but in your company you have a special administrator who is taking care of creating new resources for you. I would choose the second option here. I recommend to, for the purposes of this workshop, I recommend choosing the second option so we can create everything from scratch and make sure that it is connected to the right resources. So here I need to log in to Azure. Once I'm logged in, I have that drop down. Since I have two subscriptions available, I can choose any of them. I'm going to choose the main subscription. Then I need to choose Azure Resource Group, or there is an option to create a new resource group. Let's create a new one. So the group will be Festive Tech Resources. Region, you can choose region which is closer to you. Unfortunately, there are not that many options available right now. There are only three of them. For me, West US is closer, although I am on the East Coast. But I'm gonna choose West US. You can choose whatever region is closer to you. Then I need to name my language understanding intelligence service resource. I'm gonna call it Festive Tech Language Understanding. I hope that name is not taken, but you can name your resources um, whatever you want. It might take a couple of minutes to create the resources. This time it actually went pretty fast. So we are all set, and we also have that pretty notification here that we are ready to go. Um, so in this configuration panel, you can see the information about your LUIS connection. And then if you decide to add Q&A Maker later, you can also connect to Q&A Maker, set up your Microsoft App ID and app password. Also, there is advanced settings view. It's just a JSON, so if you prefer JSON view, it's always an option here. Or you can go back to Visual Studio, open that project there, and update it inside Visual Studio. So now let's go to create option. And you can see that out of the box, we already have greeting, cancel, help, error, and unknown intent. That's why I choose bot with Lewis integration out of the box, because if you choose an empty one, you won't have that many intents available out of the box, and you would have to build them yourself or add extra functionality using your Lewis integration. Next step here will be creating a new dialog. So click here on three dots, add a dialog. I will name the dialog weather dialog since it's a weather app. You can add description here, but I'm not gonna do it right now. And now you can see that we have absolutely empty weather dialog. Doesn't have anything. I'll go to begin dialog, and here we can start building our very first dialog. First of all, I'm gonna add a prompt for text. So as you can see, we have prompt for text and user input. Basically, that means that our bot will ask a question and will be waiting for a response from a user. Currently, I am choosing prompt for text, and on the right here, there are options to add questions. So, first question will be, what is your city? I'm gonna edit here. And actually, in order to make it more fun, more human-like, I want to add a couple of more variations so our bot doesn't ask same question over and over, especially when your users are accessing the bot several times. They might get tired of hearing same questions over and over again. And one more. So altogether, I am adding three options here. What is your city? Which city do you want me to get weather for? And please enter the city. You can add as many options here as you want, but the goal and the information you are trying to get should be the same for all the questions. Also, there is an option to add speech, attachments, suggested actions. So it's pretty cool. You don't have to write any code. You can just see how your dialogue is working out, see the design in the middle of the screen. Pretty cool. So once we are done with the questions part, now we can move to the response part. And actually, user will provide name of the city, and we need to remember it. How we're gonna remember it? We are in property. It is dialog dot city, and you see there is an autocomplete. So it's easy to use. You don't have to type everything. Also, output format, that one is very important as well. We're gonna trim the response. So especially when you are using speech recognition or even if it's just text recognition, there might be some empty characters um, that were added automatically. So we're gonna trim all the information, all the data that we don't need, all the empty characters there. And then next, we can see that there are other options, some values, some expected responses. So, and also um, the last option here, you can add recognizers, validation, prompt configurations, but we are not going to touch it today. So once we are done with that, it is automatically saved, and now we can go to Weather API, register, and get the key there. Here is a free Weather API website which we are gonna use for our workshop. You can create your free account there and get API key. There are some limitations with a free account, but that should be enough for our workshop. I already have my account created, so I logged into Weather API. Here I can see the API key. It's a free plan. You can make up to 1 million calls per month. That's a lot of calls. And then I have zero invoiced amount. So when you create your own free account, you'll see something similar there. We need to keep that API key somewhere convenient. We'll be using that in our bot. Now, when we actually created a free Weather API account and got the API key from there, we need to connect that Weather API with our bot, especially with our weather dialog. So next, I am clicking on that plus sign here and adding the HTTP request. So here you can see we have new part of our dialog that's send an HTTP request. And on the right, we have all the settings that we need to use. First of all, we need to update HTTP method. For our API, it's going to be a GET call. Then in that URL field, we need to add actual API with the key. I'm gonna add it. So the API URL you can find in the documentation for the Weather API. I'm gonna include it here. So I am also including two parameters. That's the API key that I got from Weather API website. And also in the end, I'm adding end q equals dialog city. So here we're gonna add the city that we got from a user. So user named the city, and then we'll be actually sending it to the API to get the weather for that city. Next, we can skip the body part right here since we don't need it for this get call. But we can see there are some headers that might be useful, especially the result property since we need to get the result from the weather API. So we'll be using the result later. The result property by default is turn results. I want to name it something more meaningful for our dialog. So I'm gonna name it dialog.api response. Content type will stay the same, and then response type will stay the same, but you can choose something for other calls that you might have. And that's it. It is saved automatically. That looks like a real dialog right here. We called the API, we got the response, But when you are working with API, there might be some issues that are out of your control, some connection issues, API is not available. So for that, we actually need to add a condition here. Gonna add if else condition. So now we have that new branch with if and else. First of all, we do need to add that condition. We need to make sure that our weather API is actually returning a 200 status. Write an expression. I'm gonna paste my own expression here. We're just making sure that the status code equals 200. And for some APIs, you need to double check if it's 200 or 202. Different APIs, they might return different status code. But for our API, it is 200. I have additional equal sign here. I can remove that. And then if the call was successful, then we need to move forward and set properties. So here we are adding new properties. We can set just one property if we are getting only one piece of information from the API. But in this case, we'll need a couple of pieces of information returned from the API. So I'll set multiple properties at once. So here you can see that now we have set properties option. And yeah, so here we have set properties and we can add new assignments. Under assignments, I'm clicking on add new, and there will be three properties that we need to remember. First one will be dialog weather, and the value will be getting from the API. Here I am adding a new value. The value is dialog.api response.content.current.condition.text. In order to make sure that you are actually getting correct information from the API, you know the structure of the response. There is documentation for the weather API, and then there you can see sample responses. Based on that information, you can understand the structure of the response. I can just walk you through. It is dialog.api response.content.current.condition.text. So that's going to be whether it's in the text format. Next one will be next property here. That's dialog temperature. So we'll be setting up temperature. Dialog dot temperature. And the temperature will also be accessed and will be accessed from the API. So I'm gonna just copy it from here. I have my structure saved. And don't forget the equal sign in the beginning. So it's going to be dialog.api response.content.current.temp underscore f. So dialog.api response.content.current.temp f. this API can return temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. I chose Fahrenheit just because I'm in the US. And a next property will be dialog icon. So we'll be getting weather icon right from the API. Let me copy the path to the icon. It's gonna be dialog.api response dot content dot current dot condition dot icon. So it doesn't matter what kind of information you are getting from the API, you can save it in one of the properties. So the icon is gonna be an image, and then for example, the weather is gonna be in a text format, and we'll be saving that information into different properties. So now once we are all set with the properties, we can actually start using the properties and sharing the information that we got from the API with our users. So now we'll need to send a response. We got a new box. It's a send response box. And here we can add some text. You can actually create several responses, and I'm gonna copy it from a document that I created before. The first response will be current weather condition in, and we are pulling the city from our dialog is weather, and the temperature is temperature. So we are using the properties that we set up before, and our bot will remember all of them. We can also add alternatives here. Let's add a couple of them, at least one more, so it's more interactive and your user can actually hear different things different times. And also, I would like to add an attachment here. That's why we got the icon from Weather API. So I'll be adding attachment and add. So here you have an option to update layout. I am not going to do that right now. You can also add from template or add a custom attachment. I am going to add a thumbnail card. So it is really convenient here. You have preset thumbnail card with empty fields. You need to add title, subtitle, text, image, and buttons if you want to. You might not need all of that, but it's just good to know what your options are. I already have it set up, so I'm gonna copy and paste it here. So I have the thumbnail card with title weather, subtitle current weather, text weather image. The text is not really meaningful here. And then I am adding actual image, the icon from the weather API. So it's automatically saved. And now we can move forward to the false option here. So here we are adding sender response. Since we can't really get anything from the API, we need to notify the user that something went wrong. and maybe they can try again, or maybe they can restart the bot and use it later. So here we have an option to add responses. And as you probably know, I love to add at least a couple of responses. So the first one will be more technical and will be more for developers. Sorry, there is an error in dialog API response content message. So we can actually see what happened there and what went wrong. I wouldn't recommend leaving it here when you complete your work on a bot. It is more for debugging purposes. So later on you can remove it, but more user-friendly text will be something like something is wrong, please try later. So I'm gonna add this option here. And so initially when you're trying to debug it, you probably only need the first response. But when you are ready to actually publish it and release it to your users, then you probably need to remove the first response, leave the second one, and maybe add something alternative there. So that one is saved here. The dialog is complete here. So now we only need to add the trigger to actually be able to call the dialog. So there are a couple of options. Intent recognized, Q&A intent recognized, unknown intent, dialog events, activities, duplicated intents recognized, and custom events. What we need to do here is choose the intent recognized, and then set up the name for this trigger. And the name will be whether. Now we need to add trigger phrases. And we can see some helpful information. You can add some phrases here and then configure the entities. And here we have good examples. They are related to weather, and it's really useful since we are building a weather-related skill. So we are adding those phrases here. Can just look. I can fix that so it looks better. And also, I need to uncomment the entity definition. So we will need the city, and we'll use those phrases to actually start the weather dialog. That's it. So the trigger was added to our festive tag bot, and it was automatically saved. There are also options on the right. You can add some notes. That is really helpful if you are working in a team and you want to save some additional information, some tips and tricks for your teammates. Also, the trigger phrases can be updated here. You can add specific condition, priority. You can just run it once or many times. We don't need to set up those parameters right here. We already added everything that we needed right here. Then later on, you can add more phrases if you want to. Now we need to connect that new trigger that we just created to the dialog we created before. So here I'm just clicking that plus sign to add the connection. So here again, we are seeing similar options as we saw before, but we'll go directly to dialog management and we'll choose begin a new dialog. And here on the right, you can again add notes, but we are more interested in the dialog name dropdown. So here I can see all the dialogues that are available for our bot. And I'm going to choose weather dialog here. No property should be updated. You have an opportunity to add more options and check that if activity was processed. But the most important part was to connect our dialog and actually activate it here. Since it's automatically saved, now the bot is ready to be tested. Let's start it here and test it right inside the composer. In order to test our bot, we need to start it right here in the composer. So here on top, you can see a start bot button. So I'm gonna click on that. It might take a couple of seconds to actually start it, especially when you are starting your bot for the first time. It takes a little bit of time to actually warm it up and make it available. Okay, when our bot is started, we can see that pop-up screen here. We have our bot name here, status, it is running, and then there are two options how we can test it. We can open it in web chat right here inside the composer or use emulator. So if you are not a newbie in bot development, you probably heard about the emulator. It's a separate tool that you can install on your local machine and test both bots from Azure and also local bots. But today I'm gonna choose the web chat. It's already installed and available as part of the composer. So here's the screen, and we are seeing the first phrase right away. You might be confused since we didn't write that, but it is part of pre-built functionality available with the template that we chose. So we are saying hi. Yeah, but the hi, hi didn't get processed. Um, the bot is only understanding some basic requests there. So let's move forward and actually start asking about the weather. So let's check what is the weather in Boston. Since it didn't parse our question, because we didn't integrate the functionality there, it recognized the intent there. So now it moved to our weather dialog, but it started from the scratch. So it asked the city, Boston, and we are seeing that current weather condition in Boston is partly cloudy and the temperature is 51.1 Fahrenheit. And that icon we actually got from the same API. So it is working. Now we can cancel, and that is also part of pre-built functionality. It is that cancel dialog that is coming out of the box. Do you want to cancel? Yes. So the conversation stopped, but the bot it is not stopped. It is still working. There is an option to restart it right here. We can restart conversation with new user ID or same user ID. We can save it, and then there's another option to open it in emulator if you need more details maybe there. What else is available? Here we still see the status. The bot is still running. We can restart it. We can also stop it right here. So let's actually stop it since we are done with our local testing. Okay, so now we see that the status is inactive. Now I want to show you the files, the actual solution that we can see inside Visual Studio. And if something is not available here in the composer, you can always switch to Visual Studio, write code, create more dialogues, and do whatever you want with the solution, update it, change it. It is all available for you, and it's already organized well enough that it is easy to access and work with the code. So here it is. There is a little trick when you are using the bot composer to create a new bot. Then out of the box, it is creating also the backend, all the code that you need for your bot. So even if you don't have access to composer later, you still have your solution available. It is automatically connected to the composer itself. So when you make any changes there, they will automatically appear in the code. And you can see that it's the whole solution with everything that you might need. You can also modify it, update it, add more functionality, add some things that are not available inside the composer. So it's all here for you. But you can see that we have two controllers, bot controller and skill controller. All the dialogues are here imported. Those are coming out of the box with the template that we used. Weather dialog, that's the custom dialog that we created. Um, we can open it up. We have knowledge base connection, language generation, language understanding, recognizers. So it was all generated automatically while we were just clicking some buttons inside the composer. And then media, we have top level language understanding and recognizers. Um, so I can open, for example, language understanding, and here we see English. It is available out of the box, but as I mentioned before, you can add more languages there, and you'll see all of them right here in their own folders. There are also more scripts, and even deployment templates are available here. So you can deploy either from the composer or from Visual Studio, whatever you prefer. Some settings are here, app settings, and some configuration settings here. NuGet config, README, startup. So everything that is it, everything that is available inside the composer, you can do also inside Visual Studio. Totally up to you. You can mix and match. Now I moved back to the composer so I can show you a little more about those buttons here on the side, and actually we'll be able to publish our bot right from the composer and make sure that we see the resources inside Azure portal. So the top button here is home. That's where we started our journey with the boat composer. Create is the main screen where you have the dialogues, where you see how the dialogues are associated. All the fun stuff is in that create mode. Next one here is configure, where you can go ahead and configure your bot. You have start command, so if you prefer CLI, you can run your bot right from the command line. And here you can see bot project location. So it's really easy if you want to find where your solution was created. You can just copy that path and open it in Visual Studio. You have development resources, connections, skills configuration, and localization. Since I mentioned other languages, I want to actually open localization and see how it works. So here we have English US, that's default language, and then you have an option to add more languages. So that's pretty cool and really simple. Next here will be user input. So all the user inputs that we have in our bot, they are available here. So you can see all the sample phrases. You can actually edit them right here, add more, remove stuff. So it is really cool. So the weather dialog probably has to be cleaned a little bit just to leave remove the comments there and leave actual input phrases. But I'm gonna leave it like that here. There is also an option to show code. You can edit it again and then go through the dialogues and see specific inputs for each dialogue. So it's really useful. Next one, bot responses. So same thing, but from the other side, from bot's side, all the responses, they are here all in one place. You can also create a new template right here. So it's totally up to you if you want to create them from the create screen, or you want to use that bot responses screen to create new responses and then connect them inside that create screen. Next one here is knowledge base. So currently we don't have any knowledge bases. You can connect to PDFs. You can connect to any other third-party knowledge bases. Maybe you have a Q&A maker knowledge base you want to connect to. It is all available here. And then next one here, forms. Forms is currently in preview. We are not using them, so I'm not gonna stop here. And then I want to skip publish because I want to do it last. And I'll move to the package manager here. So here, all the packages that you might need inside your bot, you can browse them through them right here. You can use NuGet or NPM, depends on what kind of language you are using. I am sticking with NuGet since I am mostly a .NET developer. I can also see the packages that were installed. Lewis, and then Q&A Maker. So Q&A Maker is already installed. We're just not using it right now, but it is easy to access it. And you can see that there are some components like help and cancel, welcome component. You can write your own components and then connect them. And also a cool thing is that you can create a bot using other tools or use a composer, create a completely different bot, and then export it as a package and then connect it to that bot that you are currently working on. So it's pretty cool. I think it is amazing. That is making the composer a real IDE where you can connect to different packages. I am really excited about this functionality. But now let's move to publishing. So we can actually publish our bot to Azure and see all resources that we are getting there. So here we can see our publishing screen. We see our bot name. So if you have several bots available, you will see all of them here. And then publishing target. We don't have anything yet. So we'll create a new publishing profile. You can either click manage profiles right here or go to publishing profile tab. Here, no publishing profiles available right now, but we will create a new one. So let's name this profile Festive Bot Publishing. And publishing target will be publish bot to Azure. And here it is really cool that they have step-by-step instruction, what you're supposed to do in each case. Currently, there are three options. You can create new resources, you can import existing resources, or hand it off to admin. Handing it off to admin means that you probably are working in a company where you don't have access, direct access to create resources, and you have a special person who can actually go ahead and using your instructions deploy all the resources, create all them for you. So currently, I would like to create new resources. It will be more clean option for us right now because I don't want to mess with existing resources and just make sure that everything is working from scratch. So here we see step-by-step instruction, what's going to happen. So I'm going to click next right here. And now I need to log in to my Azure subscription, and that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so when I get logged in, you can see your name here. You can sign out if you don't want to do it anymore. And here you have an option to choose your subscription. I have two available right now. You might have one, you might have more. I'm gonna choose a main subscription. And then I have all my resource groups available here, but I am gonna use Festive Tech resource group. I already created it ahead of time. It is completely empty. I just want to make sure it goes to the right resource group. And now you can choose operating system for your web app or function. Windows is recommended, so I'm just gonna leave it like that. Next, we'll move to resource details, new resource name. I'm gonna call it Festive Bot. Region, there are so many options. pick whatever is closer to you. I'm gonna pick East US, and then we need to choose Louis region. Unfortunately, there are way less options here, but I'm gonna choose West US right here, and then click next. And here it is really cool that you have an option to see what resources are going to be created. That is so important because as you can see, there are so many resources, and you probably guessed that it is not cheap to run all those resources. So I personally recommend to create all functionality, create your bot inside the composer, or using Visual Studio in addition to the composer. And only when it's all ready and done and you want to actually deploy everything, then only then you deploy. That way you'll save some money. Otherwise, all those resources, then they might um, consume your Azure resources. And definitely it is, some of them are really expensive, so be mindful about them. But we can see that it's Microsoft application registration, app services, the bot channels registration, Louis, and then we have both Louis resources, one authoring and one prediction. We need both of them. That's why those are required. You can uncheck them. But there are also a bunch of optional resources that you don't have to deploy. Cosmos DB, application insights, the blob storage, and Q&A maker. Since we didn't really use Q&A maker, I'm gonna uncheck that one. I am also gonna uncheck Cosmos DB for now. You might need it, you might not need it, so totally up to you. I'm gonna check it because it's a pretty expensive resource, and for the workshop purposes, we don't really need it. And then next. Now you are making sure that everything that you need is right there. Checking the resource group, and then the names, and also the third column is actually where those resources will be created. So it's all good. And I am going to click on create, and it will be provisioning that publishing profile for me. So provision is successful. It took a couple of minutes to actually finish it up. So we can close that. Target is Azure Publish. You can edit this publishing profile or delete it. But I want to go back to publish, and then now there is an option to pick that publish target that we just created. And I am checking it here, and you can see that option right there, publish selected bots. If you have several of them, you can publish several bots right at the same time. But I'm going to publish just one by clicking that. You can also write your comments. It will also take a couple of minutes to finish the publishing. You can see the status here. So you can see that the bot got published. The status is checked. That actually took several minutes. So you can pause the video, make sure that everything got published, and then we'll move forward go into the portal and check that all the resources actually got deployed. So here I opened Azure portal and opened the resource group I used for our resources to be created in. And as you can see, first of all, check the name. That's the right name, Festive Tech Resources. That's how I called it. And then you can see all the resources that were created. The main one is obviously Azure Bot, but then you can see App Insights, Storage Account, and then a couple of app services, and also Lewis. You can also check all the regions right here. And then you have an option to interact with all those resources, and you can use all the benefits of Azure. Once they are inside Azure, you can monitor your bot, you can monitor all other resources, check events, check policies, set up security levels. It is totally up to you how you want to work with those resources, what restrictions you want to set up, what policies and deployments and different levels of organization. Also login, everything is available for you. I just want to go to the Azure Bot resource right here. It's called FestiveBot. So here you can see pretty much everything that you might need. Some links to documentation. You have an option to test in web chat right here in the portal. Check the pricing. And also there are two options for channels. One of them is deprecated. So you can connect your bot to different channels right here in the portal. So out of the box, it is connected to web chat, but there are so many different channels right here. You can connect to all of them, some of them. Just be mindful and make sure that your bot can actually understand speech. It can process it, or it is strictly working with text. Yeah. Be mindful of that. Remember, you can always update your bot and then redeploy your resources. So it is pretty cool. We are done building the bot and we actually deployed it. And that's the end of our festive workshop. Thank you so much for joining me and creating that fun weather bot using Bot Framework Composer with me.
Thank you everyone for attending my workshop today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me through Twitter and LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer all your questions. Happy holidays, and I hope to see you next year. Goodbye.